This is The Huntington's Disease by Nick Armstrong and Rowan Maher. What is Huntington's disease? Huntington's disease is an inherited disease. Some of the symptoms include depression, stumbling, and involuntary jerking. Some of the long term effects include psychiatric problems such as obsessive behaviors, delusional thoughts, stubbornness, and lack of self awareness. What it does, it makes cells gradually break down and die. This condition is inherited in an autosomal dominant pattern, which means one copy of the altered gene in each cell is sufficient to cause this disorder.
This is an example of an inheritance pattern. So the square represents male, and then the circle represents female. The all white represent those that don't have Huntington's. The half and half is no Huntington's but still a carrier. And then the blank ones are those that have Huntington's. And you can see that neither of the original parents have Huntington's, but they were still carriers, so it is passed down hereditary.
The symptoms of Huntington's disease typically emerge during middle age and at first often involve subtle changes in personality, cognition, and movement. Eventually, the symptoms progress into substantial movement problems like chorea, which involves uncontrolled spasmodic movements, impaired coordination and balance, muscle rigidity, and difficulty speaking and or swallowing. Cognitive and psychiatric symptoms like dementia and depression occur as well. The disease is incurable and fatal. These symptoms are associated with neurodegeneration or the deterioration and death of neurons. A group of structures called the basal ganglia are strongly affected, but other regions of the brain experience neurodegeneration as well.
The pathology of Huntington's disease can be traced back to a mutation in a single gene called Huntington. The mutation that causes Huntington's disease is a dominant mutation. Therefore, if one parent has the disease, their child has a 50% chance of developing it too. The Huntington gene contains a DNA sequence that consists of three nucleotides: cytosine, adenine, and guanine, in repetition, a pattern known as a trinucleotide repeat. When the gene is mutated, an excess number of repeats can occur, and a mutated form of Huntington protein is created. The higher the number of repeats, the higher the risk of the disease. And all people with 40 or more repeats in the Huntington gene will develop Huntington's disease.
Mutated Huntington proteins have a tendency to group together, forming clusters within neurons that are not easily removed by brain enzymes. It has been hypothesized that these clusters may play a role in the neurodegeneration seen in Huntington's disease, where their accumulation in the brain is associated with increased neurodegeneration.